What's up, man? Hey, we're gonna get right into it. Last video, I talked about, I was ending it, and I just kind of forgot who we're gonna play next, but it's those Eagles, man. So, man, we can get right into it. It shouldn't take too long. Not a lot to research here, only because I'm pretty familiar with this Eagles team. I thought I'm having to compete. I don't know. I'm still kind of dealing with little allergies, y'all, so excuse me, man. But I'm gonna get into these Eagles, man. A lot of hate, but at the same time, there's a lot of respect. I gotta respect this team. Super Bowl appearances, man, they're pretty respectable. Defending NFC champions, but I mean that was good from from last September to February. Like that, it's done now, So while I want to respect the Super Bowl appearance, it's, as I know for them, definitely winning it would have took their trash talking or whatever to another level. But man, let's jump into these Eagles. We'll kind of start a little backwards because I got my opinions on the latter part. So one thing about facing these Eagles, man, defensively, there's a lot of respect to be had when you talk about playing their defense, especially across that defensive line. I mean, you got Brandon Graham, Jordan Davis, Fletcher Cox, Josh Sweat, Jalen Carter, Milton Williams, and Hassan Reddick and Nolan Smith. So that's a lot of guys that, just dedicated to that line. Whether it's run stopping guys who we see in I guess Jordan Davis and Milton Williams, Fletcher Cox, they'll be kind of more of those run stoppers. In that case, you'll kind of see what roles those guys kind of relish in. Just run stopping sometimes is there's more of an art to it than just being big and strong. It's also the want to as well. And you don't know what's on guys' mind when it comes to one of those opportunities to get those sacks versus staying at your position and pretty much sacrificing yourself for the betterment of the whole D line. So I don't know how that dynamic will work. But if you get a guy like Jordan Davis to eventually be that guy. Now, the depth chart, they have Fletcher Cox starting over Jalen Carter. I think it's going to be more Jalen Carter starting. Jordan Davis, guys like Fletcher Cox and Milton Williams will kind of back them up. Hearing a lot of good things about Jalen Carter from over the offseason, the camps, their OTAs and whatnot. So I look for Jalen to we got to see if he's going to be Hargrave off top. I have my reservations on whether or not he can do as well as Hargrave. Not to say that Jalen Carter won't have a great rookie season, but just off 11 sacks alone, I think Sue and Aaron Donald came close to that in their rookie seasons as tackles. You still got a lot of great guys around you as well on that Eagles team, so he could be a sneaky. He can get him a sneaky 10 sacks this year. Not even gonna front. You don't need for that to happen. Biggest thing, I kind of it's hard for me to think that a rookie's going to just come walk in and do what a Pro Bowl guy did just in his first year. I would think that would come more year 2, year 3. But Jalen Carter is a great he was a great pickup for them just because of how important Hargrave was. I was very happy when Hargrave left them, but getting a guy like Jalen Carter could lessen some of that blow that I feel like that defensive front's gonna take. Brandon Graham, I think has been noted, he had 11 sacks. Let's kind of just check on these guys' stats from last year. They lost both coordinators. I think that's going to be something that, I mean, you're going to have to overcome regardless. Now, whether they do it or not, that's, to remain to be seen. But that's something they got to overcome, like, off the top. So you had Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham. All these guys had 10-plus sacks. Sweat will still be, I think he'll kind of, by having Graham and Sweat having as many sacks as they had, Nolan Smith is kind of walking in with some competition. So he's going to have to compete against those guys. But, as we saw with Sam Williams last year, I think he was pretty productive, even though he wasn't given as many snap counts as like a DeMarcus Lawrence. But those are some great guys up front they have. I'm not going to lie to you. They have a great team up front. So our offensive line is, as much as we can say about their defensive line, they have not stopped us from, I think the first game we had last year, it was very obvious as to why we were having trouble. And, you come out and you try to make Cooper Rush do something that he didn't do all season up to that point, and that was to win the game. And so they rattled him a little bit. I think they affected the second game. Even though Hurts was out, Minshew made some mistakes, but so did we. Dak comes off with a pick six, and by the end of the game, you still put up 40 points and are able to just kind of blow out their defense. So I don't think their defensive front is something that's really, it's been good for a long time, but I don't think it's something that has really held us back personally. I think we've matched up well. Our offensive line has gotten older. The young guys are getting older. They're getting a little more vet savvy. The biggest question mark on our offensive line is Tyron Smith. You're waiting for old age to kind of start creeping up on Zach Martin as well. But our other three guys, Biotish, Tyler Smith, and Terrence Steele, I think they'll play excellent against the Eagles, in my opinion. But, like I said, they get a couple sacks on Dak, and, he threw the pick six last game they played, and, we still put up 40 on them. So I don't think their defense, in which, for them to be successful, they need their defense to play their part. All right. Even though they kind of let them down in the Super Bowl, there's a lot of games last year in which their defense was a big factor for them. But say what you want about their team. We can think it's all Jalen Hurts led, but, when you have 3 out of 4 guys returned that got you 10+ sacks last year, you invest first-round picks across the defensive line, that unit is something that needs to be respected, whether you're fan or foe. Let's see. Linebackers, Nicholas Morrow, Nakobe Dean, Sean Bradley, Christian Ellis. Again, linebacker-wise, I think we're stronger than they are. At this point, as an Eagles fan, your biggest hope is, but we haven't seen a Kobe Dean or, Nicholas Morrow with this system, and a lot of speculation. But I think our linebackers are just more proven at this point. Damone Clark as a rookie already has a leg up over Nakobe Dean as a rookie. Both were very good linebackers in their college days. And so we'll see. Leighton Vander Esch, of course, is a lot more experienced than Nicholas Murrow. So I think linebacker-wise, I think we have an edge over the Philadelphia Eagles. I think, they had a great stability with Kazir White and TJ Edwards, I believe. And, you lose those guys in free agency. And those are going to be one of those things that, the Eagles fans keep telling you, hey, we're okay. We didn't need that guy anyways. That was the worst player on our unit. That's what they're going to tell themselves. But I think, every little piece that you lose, it makes you just more susceptible, right? Like, you're building a little Jenga tower and you knock out them little easy pieces. It's still not as strong as the tower as it was when it had those pieces intact. So that's all I'm saying. All these little pieces, piece by piece, you take out what Hargrave gave you, give it Jalen Carden, but you got to see if it's going to be as much of an effect. You take those linebackers out, you don't know to what effect, that's going to affect your defense. So, granted, Nakobe Dean could step in and be as good as a TJ Edwards or a Kazir White, but those are, big ifs. So not something you can really depend on at this point, but it's hopeful thinking at this point. James Bradberry, Darius Slay, the Eagles almost let off on Darius Slay. If y'all remember, their safety from last year is gone. C.J. Gardner-Johnson led in INTs. So that's going to be a big loss. Slay, again, was somebody they were willing to let go. Vontae Maddox is that slot corner. I think James Bradberry, man-to-man, our cornerbacks versus theirs, I think we're a little bit better. I just feel like Stephon Gilmore is just as good as Darius Slay. Trayvon Diggs is better than Bradberry. Our Deron Bland is, he had 5 interceptions last year. So I would give the nod to our secondary. I know, our defensive backs for sure, our safeties for sure. They have Terrell Edmonds, Reed Blankenship. Like I said, they lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson. So they're going to have to try to make up for that. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson, when he wasn't in the lineup, the Eagles had a field goal more scored on them. And it's just a field goal, but points, they'll add up and they definitely matter. And so when you allow teams to start scoring an extra possession on you, it kind of changes the dynamic of that team. That team kind of depends on, controlling that ball, playing defense, running the ball. So when you're talking about just one player adding points, and then now you lose lost about 5 starters from your defense last year, maybe 4. But either way, that defense is going to, and then you got a new defensive coordinator. It's a lot of wishful thinking that the next man is going to step up. We invested in young guys, and they've had a chance to sit back and learn. And this defensive coordinator's coming in with fresh ideas, and he relates to yada, yada, yada. So it's unproven. So once they prove it, then, we can give it to them. But at this point, I would have to say our defense is better, and our offense, who has never been troubled by this defense. I don't you have to show me a game in which Dak Prescott started and he was just, he couldn't do anything to this defense. So you take that same defense that you scored 40 points on last year and you take pieces away from it, I think logic only tells you that the offense is gonna do about the same thing. Score 30, 40 points. That's just me though. Let's see, the offense. One thing I can flat out say, people have it right when they have the Eagles offensive line better than the Cowboys, but not by much. a lot of top 10 like offensive line rankings you look at. The Cowboys are back there in the back half. The Eagles, more than typical, they're always ranked the number one offensive line. I feel like the Eagles' offensive line has been good for a long time. I think when they lost their Super Bowl, when they won their Super Bowl in 2017, from that period to now, they've always had great offensive line. It's just that guys would get hurt here and there, and they would lose guys, and you would lose that, that dominant unit. And haven't had a dominant offensive line before, a couple years back. And once we start losing pieces here, pieces there, your line play a little different. Okay, so they lost Siamalu, and that's not enough to make them a bottom 20 line, right? The Eagles will always stay in top 10, but will they lose that number one spot, right? Will they go down to 2, 3, 4? Will they get out the top 5? Cam Jurgens is the guy that, ultimately is kind of replacing Siamalu, because Landon Dickerson, I think, was their starter last year. So even though Siamalu wasn't there, Eagles fans, they wouldn't say he was better than Mailata, Lane Johnson, Kelsey. All those guys are, they're future Hall of Famers in my opinion. Mailata, most likely. Dickerson, I think he's been putting up some Pro Bowl years. So Cam Jurgens would have to be that person. They've set themselves up with okay depth, but again, they also had amazing health last year as well. Eagles line was healthier than it's been in a long time, and when that line is able to be healthy and play an entire year, the Eagles typically do pretty good things. Like I said, just from their Super Bowl run, that was, to me, in my opinion, that was the as a Cowboys fan, that was one of the things that helped you out a little bit, and not seeing the Eagles be more successful was the fact that offensive line was getting broken down. So if they lose one piece, that will affect their team big time. So Siamalu, I think, gave you insurance that if Lane Johnson needs to sit down a couple games, guys like that kind of can gel, right? But then if you lose a Lane Johnson and then you have Jack Driscoll and Cam Jurgens on the right side, how's that going to affect the team while Lane Johnson is trying to recover? So that's my only thing. Jason Kelsey, he's getting old, but he's still playing at Pro Bowl, All-Pro level. So can't take nothing away from their offensive line. It's the best in the NFL. So I think our defensive line is still going to have his work cut out to try to get to Jalen Hurts. And then with him being so elusive, you're going to work pretty hard to really impact that side of the ball for him. Their top playmakers are A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert. Quez Watkins is someone that, as Eagles fans will let you know about him, and they'll kind of threaten you about Quez Watkins, but I'm not, he's fast, but he's not a number one receiver, So Michael Gallup has had more production. So I think head to head, when you go wide receiver to wide receiver core, I think they're about even, honestly. And I know for the secondary group, I like my secondary group a little bit better. I like my DBs better. But I say wide receiver wise, if you gave me either group, I wouldn't feel any type of way, right? I wouldn't want James Bradbury, Darius Slay, Vontae Maddox over my secondary, over my DBs. But I really wouldn't care as far as wide receivers concerned. So that's those guys are pretty much even. You can bang the table and say A.J. Brown's better than CD, but by not much. You can bang the table about Devontae Smith over Brandon Cooks, but it's not by much, right? And I'll say that CD Lamb's better than AJ Brown. We've seen lists that come out that have CD Lamb above AJ Brown. Had CD Lamb had Dak Prescott all year last year. If we're doing it by stats, then CD Lamb's stats probably would have exceeded what you got from AJ Brown last year. But hand to hand, they're different type of wide receivers, but they're both number ones. Devontae Smith. Let's see. Almost 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. So that, the production wise, I would probably be willing to bet that it looks better than Brandon Cooks, but you also got to consider what Brandon Cooks was playing at, where he was playing last year with the Texans. So I think Devontae Smith is getting ready to kind of, move up in the world, but I mean we'll see. We'll see. Like, Brandon Cooks has been a number one before on a team, right? Devontae Smith has not been a number one on a team. So you'll just have to kind of wait and see. But I'm not gonna sit here and act like we're comparing Jamar Chase to T. Higgins. It's not that big of a gap when you talk about Smith and Cooks. Dallas Goedert, top 5 tight end in the league. Probably top 3, top 4, but he's up there. You got Kittle, Kelsey. I would say Mark Andrews from the Ravens is pretty much in that Goddard level. I think he's a real good target for Jalen, real good security blanket. So those are my top 3 playmakers when you talk about the Eagles. Now, when you compare that to CD, Tony, and we'll say Brandon Cooks, I think there's a pretty apples to apples kind of comparison when you talk about those playmakers. Eagles fans will, of course, say they're better, but then as you start running down the depth, Michael Gallup to, DeAndre Swift, we might have our tight ends versus Quez Watkins. That's the thing. Our tight ends are unproven. They haven't done it long enough, but I think one of those guys are going to emerge as a playmaker for you. So, I'm looking even at playmakers. So, we might have a better playmaking roster around. So, we'll see. We'll see when it comes to that. Offensively, I think they got rid of that. It's like that option, right? Like, they can't do the little option and somebody come. It's kind of like a forward pass kind of thing. They've gotten rid of that. So I feel like that's going to affect the way Jalen Hurts plays. He relied on that a lot. Kind of made Micah Parsons bite on some things. So if that's in fact how I'm interpreting it, I think that's going to really affect the way the Eagles are just play teams in general. So we talked about pretty much the whole team. Special teams is something I've been kind of not really getting into too much just because I don't really know, right? There's kickers, punters, there's the gunners, and I don't know teams, special teams. I'm sorry. Maybe in the future. But I do know we're at quarterback to quarterback, right? We're going to talk about the QBs. And I think overall, my stance on the QB, man, where do we start? I think Jalen Hurts, he's gotten a lot of credit. He's gotten a lot of credit, right? I'm kind of turning the music down. Let's see. I picked kind of a calm track, man, because like that's how I feel when you talk about the Eagles, right? I feel, it's a very common thing, man. It's not really it's not something that's really scary, man. I feel anxious. I want to play the Eagles. It's unfortunate that the quarterbacks got hurt last year. Kind of takes away the way we can kind of brag and talk at each other. But overall, quarterback to quarterback, you got to know if you, because, all right, as pure quarterbacks, Dak is a better quarterback than Jalen. All right, I got the Cowboy shirt on. You know that's my team, but Jalen, he just as a quarterback, I don't think he can just do it alone, just as a quarterback. And I know the Eagles like to pump their chest out and say, well, he doesn't have to just be a pure quarterback to win, and it's all about winning and yada, yada, yada. Cool. That was for last year. But moving forward, these carries that Jalen Hurts and these hits that he's taken, they take a toll on any player, right? Running backs are not lasting as long. They're not getting those second contracts because they get hit so much, right? And you got to think, with a quarterback, you're not only getting hit as you're getting tackled, but you're getting hit in the pocket. So Jalen Hurts is taking on 200-300 hits, and I think from a quarterback standpoint, you know, could Tom Brady have played 20 years if he was taking 200 hits a year, you know? So these guys pay too much money to take care of their body. There's so much physical stress. I mean, Jalen Hurts can be in there squatting 600 pounds if he wants, but that's just another thing, right? He's a big weightlifter. That takes a toll on the body. You need your body to be firing and all pieces to be working for you to be an effective quarterback. And when you're just talking about throwing the ball, Jalen Hurts he still has some years left in him to be that athletic playmaker. But how much of that are you thinking of, like, long term, right? Are you thinking, all right, in the short term, I want to make all these amazing plays with my legs, and I'm gonna do anything that it takes to win, and you sacrifice all that for the back end of your career? In my opinion, Jalen, he's going to have to either try this year, next year, within the next 3 years, start playing more from the pocket and using less of that athletic ability just to preserve himself. There's been no running quarterbacks who have really been able to just stand the test of time when it comes to you can't play athletic like that for 15 years. You can't play like that for 10 years straight. Just is well documented. You can go look at Michael Vick, Cam Newton. You can just talk to all these athletic quarterbacks, and there's some point in their career where they felt like they got to stop running as much and they need to start throwing more. You know, those hits hurt. I mean, it can be a simple rollout to the left, using my legs, boom, and somebody just hits me, complete a pass, drive goes, but you don't know, like, that hit right there in that moment, how it affects that player and moving forward. So, this isn't Madden where you just turn off the injuries, right? And then, boom, like, you're good to go. Like, guys get hurt. Jalen Hurts got hurt last year. And I get quarterbacks get hurt from the pocket, but if that's the case, you already have that risk. And then you put on the added risk of him being a running quarterback. You're just, you're asking for it. So, quarterback to quarterback, Dak is, to me, a better quarterback. 15 interceptions, cool. But, Jalen Hurts did fumble the ball a lot. You could talk about, they were very careful with him, right? You don't know if Jalen Hurts had to run the same system that Dak had to run, you'd be, how many interceptions would he get? Would he get benched, So athletically, yeah, Jalen Hurts is a better playmaker than Dak. But that doesn't always ensure you success, and that's not always something that's sustainable. So we'll see, man. That's about it I got on those Eagles. That I'm not going to cover them too much on, the second game. This be about it. We might get back into them a little later, but sorry it took me so long, y'all. I've been dealing with a lot of sinus issues, and day to day just been telling myself, hey, I need to drop that Eagles video. But I've been kind of taking my time, taking my time because it's the Eagles, man. And like I said, I know much about their team as I guess I need to know. But yeah, man, overall, I think they've lost a lot on their roster. I think we've gained. There wasn't that big of a gap, but we're here, all right? So I'll talk to y'all later. Next game, we'll cover the next team. So I'll try to not take as long, all right, y'all? So appreciate y'all.